Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Logify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.
Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this first State of the European STR Industry interview. I'm delighted that we have, I think, Europe's number one expert when it comes to the SDR landscape, very good friend of the show, Simon Lehmann, joining us today. Simon, how are you?
Hey, Leo. It's great to be here, and I'm really excited to be on your podcast first time, and we have plenty of stuff to cover, which I'm really looking forward to.
Well, look, we really appreciate you being with us today, Simon, especially given that you have a large cold. So thank you, my friend. You're a real trooper to the cause.
Well, you never let down your good friends.
Simon and I go back quite a long way, actually. For the audience who won't know this, we met in Como, I think, in 2019 at a brilliant conference run by Antonio, called VRWS, which is on its, I think, probably 6th year now. Simon, I want to say. Coming up in October.
It's even longer. It's got 10 years, but he's done online before. So,
wow, 10 years. Amazing. Education's brilliant. And Simon and I, our eyes met across a beautiful Italian square in Como over gin and tonic. And probably, I'm embarrassed to say, probably a few cigarettes as well, wasn't it? But back in those days, or maybe not.
ooh,
And
bad.
No more. That's for sure. No more.
Absolutely.
I was very impressed at the time by not only the breadth of knowledge that Simon had, but the enthusiasm that he had for the industry, and we've remained really good friends ever since. So, Simon, you were absolutely the right person to come and do this for the Good Morning Hospitality podcast, and we're excited to be able to do this. We're going to try and keep these semi-regular. This is a break from our usual show that runs every week, where we talk about what's hot, topical in the news. And this is because actually we're all going to be on holiday when this comes out. So we're definitely pre-recording today. Simon, for our audience at home that somehow don't know who you are, do you want to tell us a little bit about you and what you're up to?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things you've already pointed out, I'm a true blue vacation rental enthusiast. I've been in the vacation rental industry for 20 years now. I am the co-founder and CEO of AJL Atelier. We're a boutique consultancy firm within the STR vacation rental space on a global basis. We're based out of Zurich, Switzerland. We have a team of about 11 people working with us, experts from all sorts of backgrounds, and we consult any type of stakeholder within the STR industry. So our customer base is extremely broad, starting with large investor, private equity, investment funds. We have worked with all the way through to the technology providers within the space, PMSs, channel managers, revenue management companies, etc. And last but not least, we work with property management companies on strategic consulting, growth consulting, operational excellence, financial hygiene, and many other bits and pieces. I guess our largest customer for the time that we're working with is potentially LG Electronics out of Korea. Our smallest customer has 50 units under management in the Swiss Alps. So while we're being consultants, doesn't mean we only work with the big wigs. We have super interesting small professional property management companies we're working with as well.
It's one of the things I love about you. You show just as much enthusiasm for working with a very local property manager as to working with a global software giant. And I think that is a really good place to start, because what I think sets our industry apart from the hotel industry, one of the many things that sets it apart, is how important it is you get your local operations to scratch and make sure that you're running a successful and sustainable business. You've talked a lot about this idea of merger and consolidation being something that's happening across the space, and we're starting to see it. Even in that, with that happening though, I still remain completely convinced that you have to get your service delivery right at the local level. You're much more of an expert on this than I. Do you think that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, many moons have passed, Leo, since we first met, and also the environment and the markets and the models and the convictions and everything that was out there has also changed, and also our opinions have changed, and we can change our opinions as we see the market going through a certain evolution. And one thing that will stay, like, there's a couple of things that will not change in the classic short-term rental, vacation rental industry. First of all, we're building our business on trust because we have no assets. So it's an asset-light business, and the trust is the homeowner trusts the property manager to rent that out. The second piece is this business is and will remain hyper-local, okay? So the action is happening in the destination. Being it with the cleaning, the maintenance, the guests who want to experience the local destination, and the owner who goes to that place, and that's where you need the relationship. So being hyper local is never going to change, and you need to be basically the expert in your local destination. You need to have a great network of suppliers, of business partners, real estate agents, you name it. It's a hyper local business and will remain a hyper local business. And last piece that will not change is it will continue to be hyper fragmented. And, we talked a lot about consolidation, but it's a myth. And we have seen it's not working at scale in the US with Ocasa and others. And also in Europe, when you think about the four largest PMCs in Europe who have been around for 60 plus years and more, they have less than 2% of total market share in the European market. And, they're around 30, 50,000, whatever the units are, but it hasn't become bigger because scaling a hyper-local business is still a massive challenge, and the action is hyper-local. So the fragmentation is there. I developed a term probably about 2 or 3 years ago. So we're in the mushroom business. Cut one off, 3 ones are growing after. And I think that's not going to change.
I think it's really interesting that you referenced the mushroom business, because I actually heard you say that, and I use that, to be honest. I should credit you more, but I use that line. I like it. I think I heard you say that at the Avantio conference for the first time, actually. Let's go back on that point. The big four vacation rental managers in Europe have 2% of the market. Interesting. Do you think that technology plays a role in terms of, do you think it's become much easier to run and operate your business such that you're less likely to sell to a bigger player, or just that you're more likely to run them privately, 2 or 3 properties that you own and manage yourself?
I mean, technology is a must-have in our industry, regardless, to create efficiencies, to deal with margin compression, to deal with guest expectations, and introduce automation, put technology where the smile is not required, put the people where the smile isn't important. This tech-enabled, we talked about until about 2018, we talked about this term, or 19, this tech-enabled property management company. That term was sort of invented by the founders at Vacasa. Nobody talks about tech-enabled property managers anymore. If you don't have tech, you're not enabled, full stop. And then the conversation starts: is it proprietary technology, or is it technology that you can source in the market? And therefore, there we have clearly shifted our views as well. Once again, we have changed our minds. Is that at the time, everybody's like, okay, I can create more value with building my own proprietary technology. Over time, to what we're seeing now in the marketplace, I don't think that's the case anymore. I think there's so much technology out there that has commoditized that you can use to run a very professional business. Of course, if you run a business with 30, 40,000 units, then you would think you run it off your own proprietary technology, you can customize a lot, etc. But at large, I'm a strong believer that proprietary technology does not differentiate you from the rest, number one. And number two, it doesn't give you potentially a strategic advantage. There might be some exception if you have built an incredible revenue management tool, or if you have an incredible guest engagement tool and software that you have built that sets you apart, or you have created a middle layer between your PMS and your other technology to integrate better, then yes, there is some bits and pieces within your tech stack where you can differentiate yourself. But I'm definitely not a big supporter of any proprietary tech in today's world.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I guess my feeling is, Simon, that given how ready and available the off-the-shelf technology is, does that limit the opportunity of budding, growing property managers to get to 3, 4, 5, 600 properties? Because really the barrier to entry for the guy who's only got 2 or 3 is super low. It's even lower than it was 5 years ago, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we don't need to talk about entry barriers in our industry. I always say the entry barrier is zero. You need an apartment and you're off to the races, right? So you don't need an education, you don't need anything, right? You just need grandma's apartment and off you go. You're a property manager, right? And then we can start debating what is a property manager and when are you becoming a property manager from being an RBO, a rent by owner. But I think technology will not limit yourself. I think when we talk about technology and the key there is actually to think about what is your strategic plan with your business. Are you here for growth? Are you here for a lifestyle? Are you here for a steady income? Are you here to keep your day job? I mean, there's so many things you need to consider coming to this industry. And once you sort of understand where you want to be and what markets are you at, I think you need to start thinking about your tech stack very early in the piece. And very seldom we come across property managers who have chosen a PMS or a tech stack and have never changed over time, right? And I think that's the biggest challenge here, that you do your tech sourcing really well and think about your plans and see what kind of software suits my needs over time. Also, if I grow, because it's obviously becoming very painful when you need to change PMS when you're in your growth mode, because that will slow you down. And you have challenges migrating data, financials, et cetera, et cetera. So this is definitely something that is totally not considered the right way. What is your tech strategy? And then also go out into the market and source your right technology, and do your homework before you decide what you do, because I think that's so important to support your growth strategy, that you have the right technology at hand.
So if you were advising some of the big European companies at the moment that are making plays in the market, sort of one of the ones that's growing rapidly is Host and Stay. We've also got Joie, Bob W taking a slightly different approach, taking over whole buildings, but still making big plays. How would you be advising them to make sure that they don't get their lunch stolen by local operators? How can they do it at scale?
Well, our good friends at Host and Stay, they don't need anybody. Dale knows what he's doing, and so is the rest of the teams out there. But I think Host and Stay is an interesting one, and I think they have totally understood where can I differentiate my service offering with technology from, on one hand, from the PMS standpoint. So they use a very strong, large PMS, which is not their proprietary tech, but they have built proprietary tech around it for home automation and some other bits and pieces where Dale and Host and Stay is putting a lot of focus on from differentiation standpoint, from the product offering, from the experience for the guest. So that's super impressive. And I couldn't even advise them in a different way, because I think they have understood how to use technology on one hand to commoditize what needs to be commoditized, where you can't really differentiate, and really invest where you can differentiate and make a difference for your guest experience and everything else. And I think that really matters, that you can set those pieces apart.
It's been an interesting year for Europe. I would say it's been a little bit topsy-turvy. The interesting summer around, we had a lot of sporting events and people have got moving around in Europe, but it's definitely been a strange year. ADRs have slipped anecdotally, and if you look at the data, for the first time as well in a long time, supply growth has significantly outpaced demand. Where do you see this developing in the latter part of the year and into the next?
Yeah, great question. And obviously, we're being confronted with that question on an ongoing basis right now. And I said 2 years ago at the executive summit at VRMA in the US, I went on stage with an umbrella. And obviously, if you do that in Florida, you're pretty nuts because the sun shines all day long. And then people were laughing at me, and I went on stage, and when I was closing the conference, actually, and I said, on a sunny day, you always forget your umbrella, right? And with that, we implied that, the sunny days that we have seen for 21, 22, 23 are definitely going to be over. The market is overheated. We had pent up demand. We had, a lot of domestic travel. Now it's moved again more to international. We have a lot of other things to deal with. And for us at the time, it was clear that this performance is not going to continue. And now we see the clear results, right? And I think 25 is going to get even tougher, to be perfectly honest. And we don't do that just because we're consultants. We see certain signs, and you already alluded to the market metrics, but also in change of travel behavior in terms of economical issues that we're dealing with. Yes, the European Central Bank has reduced interest rates again yesterday, the index by 0.25%, which is obviously an indication that inflation has come to its peak. But there's a lot of other things to consider: regulations, consumer behavior, travel behavior. Even like if you look at and generalizing it is always very difficult for us as a advisor as well. So we say, yes, we look at Europe, we look at the US, we see similar signs, supply outpacing demand, therefore reduced ADRs. I mean, the homeowners have been spoiled for years. ADRs going through the roof. Their take rates have been incredible, and now they're screaming at the property managers, "Where are the bookings? Where are the bookings?" And why you need to lower my price because we had so good prices. So I think it's becoming a challenge right now. But I wouldn't just look at the entire market as one. I think we always need to break it down: urban, leisure, and then also destinations where, if you look at Scandinavia, they have benefited in immense because of global warming. If you look at the numbers in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, I mean, people going up north, so they're definitely benefiting. They've seen growth rates like unbelievable. But then the UK domestic market has suffered because a lot of people went to caravan parks and cabins instead of cottages last year. And also that because of reduced spending and everything else. So I think we need to look at each market and each type in a different way. But we definitely, this is the years we've seen of 22 and 23. I don't think they will come back that quickly.
It's really interesting. I love the point you've made there. If you look at the ADRs for Scandinavian countries, they're completely on the rise, aren't they? And you've got land folk that seem to be very well placed to be able to capitalize from that based on where their property base is. And maybe there's a slight cultural shift up there that people would start to rent out cabins that they've previously just kept in the family. I think it's very interesting. Talking about that, so talking about the types of leisure, the types of market, the urban at the moment is being hacked away at left, right, and center with regulation. Some of it sensible, some of it really misplaced, and some of it just downright idiotic. With that in mind, and we will probably go on to we'll have to talk about regulation. It's a hard topic to discuss, but we can't talk about the state of the industry without talking about it. But we'll go on to that a bit later. But with that in mind, which type of lodging, which segment of the European lodging market do you think is going to have the best time over the next few months and years?
Camping. Is that lodging? I mean, I think we will definitely see good demand in budget travel again, without a doubt. I think it's always hard to talk in different categories because different categories are built for certain personas and guests. I think the family parks, more budget accommodation, will probably do very well. The ultra luxury has always done well, even especially post-COVID, it's grown dramatically. I think the urban markets are definitely under massive threat. We're seeing different models. Have the different models really worked out? They're still in comparison to the total supply, reasonably small, but they seem to be doing really well. The combination of more STR type property with services in larger buildings like Noma, for me, is a perfect example, who has done a tremendous job. So I think we will always see a winning segment within the segments. And I wouldn't just pinpoint that one, because it really depends how do you adapt to the changing consumer behaviors, to your demand patterns. What kind of folks are you focusing on in terms of your guests, et cetera, et cetera. And then you brought in the regulation. That's another piece that is now nipping away. For example, in Zurich, we even talk about it now, where regulation goes after the people who have converted traditional multi-family units into STR, saying, hey, they should be banned. But if they're custom built, then they can't be banned at all. So if you build it from scratch, then you don't fall under that. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how the different hospitality sectors are reacting to the regulations and deal with it as well.
Has it surprised you, the speed with which regulation has taken hold?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Have we played it down? No, we haven't. The way we looked at it in the past, it was more, yes, it's coming, but we don't see this as a massive threat, especially in the leisure destination. I was never a big urban guy my entire career. I come obviously from a more classical SDR, professional management background, than having urban. And it's interesting to see that when you look at the leisure guys, and we see that a lot when we're selling assets in the industry, where we sell property management companies, a lot of traditional urban guys are now looking to buy leisure destination property managers. So they want to diversify for many different reasons. Regulation is definitely one. But when you look at companies like a Sykes or an Aways, and the larger of these PMCs, they don't want to buy assets in the urban markets at all, right? They're like, we're not interested in urban inventory. We go leisure, right? So I think that's sort of the answer to it, that we have played it not down, but we have seen it, but we didn't see it coming in that quickly. And now we're seeing literally news every second day. The latest came from Greece now and whatever. What I'm still questioning very much so is, what is the real impact going to be? Because if you ask me, the way STR is being thought about by the politicians and the lobbyists, etc., does not cover the entire story in terms of what the value proposition of a property manager of an STR in a destination is. Is it going to resolve the housing issue in a destination? My answer is clearly no. It depends again on the markets. Is somebody forced to rent it out because of regulation? Certain leisure markets, they don't need to rent it out. Okay, then they don't. So the destination will lose. And even in urban markets, one thing that is missing for me in the whole topic is what is the revenue generator, the difference between the revenue generator of a hotel guest to an STR guest. Ultimately, my conviction is an STR guest spends more money in a destination than a hotel guest. Full stop. Like what we are we're creating an enormous amount of jobs. So our guests are spending in the local communities, go to the restaurants, go to the shops, buy food, go to markets. We have maintenance people, we have cleaners, we have so many people that are dependent on our industry, and we're creating a lot more for the destination than a hotel. A hotel is hostile. They want the guests to come, spend all the money in a hotel, and leave again. And in STR, we don't do that at all. So I think it's very short-sighted to think if you put regulations onto the supply in a city, does that result immediately in more supply for apartments for living, so people can afford to live in the destination? And we have not seen that happening. And then tourist taxes are missing, tourists are missing, et cetera, et cetera. So my take is, first of all, it really depends. Is it more a left or a right-wing type of government that runs it? And obviously, we've seen it more on the left-hand side have been trying to regulate a lot stronger. But I think regulations will swing into all different directions when they start seeing impacts of not just being positive, but also negative.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think where regulation has been sort of done in a reactionary way to try and solve a short-term political problem, it will unlikely be unpicked and unraveled. Where it's been done thoughtfully and where it's constantly renewed, I believe it has. I believe it has a chance. Where it's consultative and tries to deal mixed local needs, and the demands of what locals want. I always reference the mayor of Porto who puts short-term rental licenses only in neighbourhoods that they want to make better because they know tourists bring economic development, cafes, bars, restaurants. So there's definitely people doing. Definitely people doing it well, and people doing it less well. I'm going to ask you another question to do with this. You might find it doesn't quite link, but I'd be interested to see what you say. Obviously, people will come to you to help them sell their business very regularly in Europe. Do you think that the regulation or this particularly difficult market we've had recently is driving more operators, more property management companies to try and sell?
Yeah, without a doubt. But obviously, that has a direct impact on what you can expect for your business, right? I mean, we've seen areas where people are trying their business because they just seem to struggle to think, how can I overcome that? And we had the tough few years. COVID was hard for everyone, and everybody's like, a lot of people think, hey, another huge challenge to manage. I'm really not in for it, so I'm looking at selling. So there's different reasons why people want to sell, but I think regulation has definitely got an impact. There's no question. It depends on the value. It depends what, you've just seen, for example, Check My Guess being sold to Oyo in Paris. Paris is a highly regulated market, and they have thousands of units, and they sold it for an incredible price. So obviously, there's still buyers who see opportunities, even though there's a regulated market. And the regulated market doesn't mean necessarily it's bad, especially if it's capped. Like Barcelona and others have been striving businesses in the STR space, and I don't want to be abandoned entirely. So good luck to any STR, any PMC trying to sell the business in Barcelona. It's obviously not going to happen because nobody's going to buy it. But I think regulation not necessarily doesn't need to be immediately bad. I think if a regulation can be identified in terms of there is still a valid business to be done here, then I think it could also drive people to think, hey, I want to buy more companies because I found out the way I can deal with that.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think, to me, it goes back to, again, we're talking about the split between urban and leisure and rural, because they're having two different times of it at the moment. Also, I want to touch back on your point about camping and micro camping, because I do think I'm seeing that trend as well. Can we read into that with Holiday's acquisitions? They bought a French OTA, a French rural OTA, and a Spanish rural OTA, which you probably know more about than me. Do we think that is them trying to future-proof against this in this really tough regulatory landscape?
I wouldn't really put that together. I think for them to buy these platforms was really get access to supply that is less regulated than an urban. I mean, if you look at Holiday's total supply for Bookiply, it's probably more leisure destinations than what it is urban destinations. I think the acquisitions that Holiday made on these platforms made a ton of sense because they want to bring more inventory to Bookiply. Hence, they bought a Spain holiday in Spain, and the one in France as well, because also these markets are less regulated, and I think that makes a ton of sense. And we will see more of those acquisitions for the people to go after the longer tail of the industry, which is the RBO tail. That has received a lot of attention. Home to Go is one, Holiday is another, Home Race is another, Your Rentals. These type of businesses go after the long tail to bring single units that they can use their technology, and I think we'll definitely see more of that.
Even though it's been an interesting few months / year. Clearly, there's more people moving around than ever before. Well, I say those words deliberately because there's digital nomads, people working remotely for a number of months, people swapping properties, Do you advise property managers in Europe to consider where they're getting their guests from more and try and move away potentially from the big traditional channels that have served them well over the last couple of
Yeah,
years?
there is no question. I mean, that was a huge topic at VRM Days in Croatia last year. And why was that a huge topic at VRM Days last year? Because Croatia, out of all Southern European countries, has probably one of the shortest season. And that's interesting. So no, they have hardly any season outside of summer, and they have a lot of supply. So that means they have a lot of vacant supply. So they need to think about how can they address these digital nomads, these different type of people who want to travel and have an infrastructure. And then the question is, have you ever thought about putting an additional computer screen and a strong Wi-Fi into your property? Have you ever thought about putting a comfortable office chair into a place and maybe an office chair or have a separate room to work? And then they're like, the eyes were lighting up saying, actually, this is great because, that will actually attract a different type of guest persona. And so to your question, absolutely. I think generally property managers don't know enough about their guests, especially if they're very OTA dependent. What is the motivation? Where they come from? How do they book? Blah, blah, blah. And I think that's the place to start with. Understand who your guests are and who you don't attract. If your website is only in German, of course, you only get German demand, for example. Have you ever thought about international demand? How many property managers have missed out on a massive influx of US travelers this year? A ton. And the US travel internationally quite a bit. And, I was always playing that down because I'm a father of a proud 5 children to say, look, this type of holiday doesn't work for me because at school holiday, I need to travel. And when they're going to school, I can't be all over the world. But I was amazed how many people are now becoming so much more flexible in terms of where they stay, how long they stay and whatever. And I think also midterm to long-term stays, we're missing out opportunities. Like who is offering in Spain, for example, to let's say German retired people a 2 months vacation in October, November. Climate has changed and gives longer seasons and this massive opportunity, and we're not grasping it.
Very interesting. Very interesting take on it. Let's move to the OTAs. We've got the big 3 that look quite immovable, but as the TripAdvisor news this week shows, change is the only constant, right? So we're seeing a growth in adventure-based OTAs, other niche type OTAs, ones that are market specific. Have you known in your career a time where the landscape is quite like this for OTAs, and what do you see as the challenges and opportunities for them?
Well, I think OTAs need to create even more stickiness than what they have done in the past. I think there is chances for disintermediation. I mean, Google has faced some challenges as well with their market dominance just recently. But, we've had this OTA debate basically since the last 10 to 15 years, where I also attended the Focusrite conference and everybody's like Google versus OTAs, OTAs versus Google. I think the place has become pretty clear now with Booking, Airbnb, and Expedia. And I don't foresee massive shifts in terms of the market dominance. And do we see something that will disrupt that dramatically? I doubt it. We've talked about it in the past, blockchain technologies, DAOs, decentralized organizations that just work on their own with blockchain technology behind it and basically take the OTAs away. We have not seen that. Booking.com has, even with Google Flights, they have not destroyed Kayak or any other meta search platforms as well. Google Hotel Ads has also not killed Booking.com because Booking and Expedia still spend a huge amount of money on Google. So I think they're cutting the cake amongst themselves. Yes, you will see some shifts in terms of users and guests with Airbnb, Expedia, Vrbo, and Booking.com. I think Booking will gain more market share in the US. They have massive war chest. They will spend more money there. Do I see big changes over time? I don't think so. Do I see massive disruptive technology out there that is going to change that? And I'm sure we're going to talk about this incredible topic called artificial intelligence as well. Is that going to change it? I mean, at the end of the day, OTAs will adapt any type of technology so they can understand their guest better and their customer better, bring better search results, which still isn't fixed, right? It still takes people hours to find their properties, and it's just a disaster. I think AI can improve that tremendously. But it's the OTAs who will bring this type of technology as well, and not just somebody else who can disintermediate. At the end of the day, building a brand of that size is still a very costly exercise, despite of the technology you can offer to bring a better search result. Sorry to say.
I really like the way you've answered the question. Thank you. And it will be interesting when you agree to come and do this with me next year, we can play the tape back, can't we? And see if you were right on one or two of these things. And I'm sure we'll enjoy doing that. I think your take on the OTA landscape currently is I think I'd agree with it. Let's go delve back into AI, because I know that you know that that's a real change maker. Do you think that brings Google further in to the industry overnight, because they're obviously investing heavily in AI?
Probably. I mean, this is a crystal ball question. Probably they are. Interesting. We just changed at AJL. We moved our entire business suite from Microsoft to Google. And the AI component of it is actually one of the reasons why we made that decision. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree with you that I think AI will help speed up property searching. Obviously, we had the European Court of Justice upholding the European Union directive to not give Google any advantage when it comes to showing its own hotels and shop products in its search feature. So I think we can see in AI that I think Google will have to be showing properties from other sources and not its own source, which I think is interesting, because it means they can play the game without maybe going further in. And everyone knows the point of a Google search is to find the thing you need in the most efficient way possible, right? That's what they're designed to do. But what about in terms of trip planning, itineraries, what to do when you're in a property? Surely that's another area where we can expect to see AI very quickly.
Absolutely. I mean, for anybody who is using AI today already on a daily basis can see how powerful this is, right? Interesting enough, when you go and use ChatGPT and ask who are the most influential people in the vacation rental industry, it's quite an interesting list. Anyway, joke aside.
I won't expect to see my name in the list then, Simon. Yeah.
It's very interesting. And I think with the compounding rate AI technology has, it's no question that it will have a massive impact and continuously. I have tried AI on itinerary and travel planning, and it was pretty shitty. I've tried Expedia as well, and then no search result came out. And I didn't ask for a lot of things that I was looking for, but absolutely, as these large language models get better and better, and that's what AI is all about, because the machine learns and get better at it. I think personalization and really hitting the mark for what you're looking for. It's all about prompting, right? We learn how to prompt and get better results. And I think in travel search, it's going to have a massive impact to actually allow you not to having to sift through thousands of properties until you find something that you're looking for. And I think that will definitely have a big impact on search. We talked about language models, voice models in the past. I remember a Focusrite conference where the big thing was all about voice. How is voice going to impact in search? It had no impact at all. Voice is still not resolved, right? And now AI is sort of taking over that and say, okay, well, the voice can't handle it. Yes, you have incredible voice models now, of course, but still use your voice commands in a modern today built car. It's still a shitty experience, It doesn't understand you, and then you end up typing anyway because you just give up on it. Maybe that's the way we speak English in Switzerland, or High German, that we can't speak either. But I think it will have a definitely big impact. But also I see that people need to be open to it and make sure they understand what impact it has, and that also is in relation to the property management industry. I think we will see a lot of very interesting and good use cases coming out with AI that will make our work even more efficient as well.
My prediction that everyone's trying to monetize the guest at the moment, right? The guest is the holy grail. And I think people are going to invest heavily in AI to try and do that. And I think that's a good option. Simon, we've loved having you. I want to make the most use possible of your brain while we have it. Is there we've danced around plenty of themes. Is there anything else you think we should be talking about to do with where we are at the moment as an industry in Europe? Is there anything we've missed?
No, we haven't missed anything. I think the only thing I would probably go back and say, regulation, that's a bigger issue than what we anticipate. So therefore, doing something, advocacy is extremely important. And we can't think as an industry somebody else will take care of it. And that's while we're so hyper local and hyper fragmented, nobody wants to spend money on it, right? And that's where the hotel is killing us, because hotels have just been traditionally better organized in the destination with hotel associations, very powerful. Make a few examples like Mallorca and other places where hotel, we're getting regulated not just because of budget housing. We also get regulated because of hotels have been very powerful and smart about it. And the same goes for Barcelona. This could also be about hotels, because at the end of the day, what nobody talks about is that as soon as you regulate, the hotel prices go through the roof. And is that in the interest of the destination? Probably not. If you look what happened in New York after they threw out Airbnb, the hotel prices went through the roof. If you want to stay in New York for a night in a 3-star hotel, you're paying $500 and more. I mean, this is insane. So I think that piece we still need to talk more about. And then the second piece is the management overall. What can we do for the professional property management industry? Now with Airbnb, with their co-hosting product, is that going to be a big threat to the professional property management industry? Are the margins we're taking from homeowners, 20-30%, are they sustainable with what's going on out there, where we can automate a lot of things? OTAs take care of the demand and everything else. Are homeowners over time still prepared to pay 20-30% on rent for commission for a property manager to run its business? And if we don't pick our game up and provide a clear understanding to the homeowner, what is the value proposition of a PMC, and we're being super professional about it, it could get potentially tough. And that's something I want to continue talking about in the future as well.
Two very important points to finish with. Thank you, Simon. I'm going to call you out live on air in the hope that it means you will say yes. But can we have you back in 6 months to do a follow-up?
Absolutely.
There you go. You heard it here first, guys. That's a scoop. That's what they call a scoop in the business. Simon, thanks so much. I mean, I'm sure plenty of the people listening here will have already heard you speak, but you're such a font of knowledge. If people want to learn more, how can they find you?
Yeah, great question. So best way to find me is definitely on LinkedIn. I'm very active. We're posting a lot of things about the industry and our thoughts and everything else. So on LinkedIn, Simon Lehmann, Lehmann is the best way to find me, at AJL Atelier. And then we're more than happy to get in touch with you. And you can find us directly on the web, ajlatelier.com. And looking forward to it.
Great. And to our audience at home, thanks for joining us for this special episode, The State of the European SDR Industry in 2024. Tell us what you've enjoyed about the show, and we'll try and feature more of it in the coming months. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, please hit like, share, or subscribe in all the usual social places. Until next time, thank you.
Thank you, Leo.
Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Lodgify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.